McLaren and Aston Martin have launched their 2023 cars, not just the liveries, but the real things, which is absolutely fantastic. So finally we're getting into the quality F1 launches. So let's get into what we saw from today. Let's get into both of the cars, the MCL60 and the AMR23, and then talk about both of the teams ahead of the upcoming season. Here it is then, the McLaren MCL60 for 2023. Now, previously, obviously, last year's car was the MCL36, and they were kind of counting it up, but yeah, they decided to change up the naming structure just a little bit because they are celebrating McLaren's 60th year in Formula 1, so I'm actually quite looking forward to seeing what they're going to do next year. Is it going to go to MCL37, where they're going to, pick up after last season? Is it going to skip a year, so it's going to go MCL38, or is it now like the beginning of MCL61 for 2024? So yeah, that was just something that was in the back of my mind, but surprise, surprise, the livery is basically the same as last year, although there are some subtle differences. The Google Chrome is much more pronounced, and to be fair, I was actually probably in the minority of people that actually liked last year's livery. I know a lot of people weren't really big fans of it, but I actually was, and then they kind of took a lot of the papaya away, and to be honest, whilst I am a big fan of this livery, I do wish that there was more papaya. I wish there was more orange, and that it wasn't so much kind of a little bit of orange, a little bit, a tiny bit of blue, and then mostly black or exposed carbon. So again, we're seeing this trend in 2023 because I really do feel like when you think about orange and papaya, like that's McLaren, that's their signature color, that's their branding. But unlike a Ferrari or even Aston Martin, which we're going to get to next, it's weird because they almost don't use enough of it to make it their distinct kind of branding color in Formula 1. That should be kind of, the entire car should be papaya, and everything else should kind of match that, kind of be an afterthought in a sense, if that kind of makes sense. Because, when you look at Ferrari is red. The red goes first, and then they think about all of the other sponsors, all of the other kind of, little other aspects of the livery. But here, the papaya almost seems like a little bit of an afterthought. Like, let's just try and find somewhere to squeeze it in, which is a bit of a shame in my opinion. But again, overall, I don't actually prefer it to last year's livery, especially the launch livery where there was a lot more papaya. But I feel like the combination of kind of the orange and the light blue is still really, really nice. I don't quite know where the light blue has come from because, it's nothing to do with, for example, the golfer liveries. So yeah, it's just kind of what they've had over the past couple of years. But yeah, we'll see if it's kind of stays around because yeah, I don't quite see the significance of it. But again, initial thoughts, not quite as good as it was last year, but still a really, really good livery in my opinion. As much as I liked the MCL60, I've got to admit I am an even bigger fan of the AMR23. Now, this was one of my absolute favorite liveries last year, and luckily, in this occasion, I'm really happy that they've kept it kind of similar because they're building that Aston Martin branding. Now, the one thing I will say is, similar to McLaren, I preferred last year's livery just a little bit because, as soon as I saw these the renders of this livery, I was really happy with how much green there is. However, there isn't as much of that fluoro yellow, which I really, really liked from last year. So, for example, you see on the screen a picture of the brand new car. There's only really on kind of the winglets on the wheels, and then also just that one line right across the car with that fluoro Aston Martin yellow. Whilst if we take a look at last year's car, this is a picture from last year. I think during the Singapore Grand Prix, there is way more of that fluoro yellow. You can see that one distinctive line that goes right across the car. You can see on the cockpit where the driver's legs are, you can see the Aston Martin logo in that yellow as well. Also on the beginning of the floor, the yellow in Aston Martin, and also on the fin of the engine, that again, that distinctive fluoro yellow line. And I am a big fan of that because I really thought that green is kind of Aston Martin's kind of company color or heritage color, but then that yellow can be almost like their motorsport color. I really thought that is what kind of they were trying to push, but yeah, unfortunately they've took away some of that yellow. So the Aston Martin logo, for example, where the driver's legs are, that's now just the basic Aston Martin logo, which it is a nice kind of logo, but I definitely preferred it in the yellow. Also, at the beginning of that floor, now the words Aston Martin are just in white, and there's none, no yellow on the front wing as well. So yeah, no yellow on the fin as well. So they've removed some of that fluoro, which I was a really big fan. I just thought the green with the yellow just set it off absolutely amazingly. And again, going back to that picture from last season, at night on a street circuit, that livery just looked incredible. But either way, as much as it isn't quite as much as I don't prefer it over last year's, it is still an absolutely banging livery. And the reason why undoubtedly it's probably my favorite so far is that unlike McLaren, where I talked about where the papaya was almost like an afterthought in my opinion, here the green is absolutely front and center. It is the main color. It absolutely is not an afterthought, and it's really good to see Aston Martin kind of, even in just their third year in Formula One, they're already building that heritage. They're already building kind of that green heritage of that's their racing color, and it doesn't look like an afterthought, absolutely. So yeah, love this livery. Again, just the missing pieces of yellow is something that I really liked last year, but this is still a really, really nice livery and a really nice balance as well, because there's a lot of carbon fiber on the bottom, but it's a nice separation because you're not going to miss this car at night or in the daytime with that incredible Aston Martin green. And even the sponsors, I think just the way they've coordinated the entire car, because there's plenty of sponsors, but all of the logos are in white, so they're all the same color, and it's just a really cohesive livery. And also just that splash of yellow does kind of just set it off just a little bit, so it's not just the green car. So yeah, Aston Martin, undoubtedly my favorite livery so far. Very glad to see the AMR 23, and we just hope that it's going to be a competitive car, so we can see what Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll can do, mixing it up in the midfield. Well, those are just the liveries, but again, it was really good to see the actual cars and also the drivers themselves in their race suits. It was very good that Aston Martin and McLaren kind of launched their cars at the same time, because looking ahead of the season, there is no doubt that they're going to be looking at each other and probably be kind of big rivals over the course of the season, because there is so much excitement around both of the teams. McLaren have been on this journey, I feel like, ever since 2018, 2019, where they're trying to get back to where they were in their heyday, challenging for championships, and it must be said that their rise has stalled just a little bit. I think last year was massively disappointed. Obviously, it didn't help by the fact that Daniel Ricciardo was kind of, not in a great kind of state in terms of as a driver. He wasn't getting the most out of the car, and it's strange because there is so much to be excited about McLaren. They were kind of challenging Ferrari in 2021 in the midfield, and then they weren't able to make that jump up that Ferrari did manage in 2022, which was massively disappointing. If anything, they went much further back down. I mean, yeah, they had a disastrous beginning of the season, so yeah, they're going to be looking to kind of get off on the right foot at the beginning of the season, although there was some pretty kind of worrying statements by McLaren and Andrea Stella, the brand new team principal, basically saying that they didn't kind of achieve everything they wanted to with the launch spec of the car, and they're already looking kind of to the upgrades that they're bringing early in the season, which I think is a bit of a... It doesn't fill you with confidence, does it, to say that, the launch car, we're not even 100% happy with it as it is at the moment, and we're already thinking about the upgrades, whilst, you want to be kind of hearing that we have worked hard on this car, this is what we're going to be competing with at the beginning of the season, and we, 100% trust that it's going to do exactly what we want it to do. So yeah, a little bit strange kind of mixed signals from McLaren, maybe just kind of dampening expectations just a little bit, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see. There's going to be so much excitement around McLaren, I think, this year with their brand new driver lineup of obviously Lando Norris, an established superstar waiting to get a race winning car, which I can't wait to see him get that. He did reaffirm that he is not kind of... He is on the McLaren journey. He is 100% committed to this kind of rebuild of McLaren. So I think that was very, very important, because there's been a lot of questions about his future at the team. So yeah, he has kind of reaffirmed his commitment to the team. So that's really, really good. But with Oscar Piastri coming in and the fiasco as it was in the summer of last year, he has got a hell of a lot of pressure on his shoulders after the disappointing time with Daniel Ricciardo. So yeah, I've already talked about on this channel that I think McLaren have one of the most exciting driver lineups, in Formula One, and undoubtedly my most exciting driver to watch next year is gonna be Oscar Piastri. He has off the scale kind of levels of potential, but how is he going to be as a rookie up against Lando Norris? So yeah, that's just going to be an amazing driver lineup to watch. And when it comes to Aston Martin, I mean, the really interesting thing is that by the end of last season, I mean, they were kind of really fighting in that best of the rest. Like, there were some races, I remember Austin, where they had the best of the rest car. Like, they were better than McLaren, they were better than Alpine, and I feel like that's almost where we expected them to be going into 2022 with all of the massive... I mean, even at their launch, there was so much talk of the amount of people that they've hired, obviously the infrastructure changes, the fact that they've got a state-of-the-art, factory. They managed to, definitely mention that once or twice. ridiculous to say the least. So there is a lot of investment going into Aston Martin, but last year they massively underdelivered. I feel like this team, especially now with Fernando Alonso, I mean, it wasn't as if Seb was kind of holding the team back, but, you know, Seb wasn't 100% committed to staying in Formula 1, and now they have a driver in Fernando that will absolutely get every single last 10th out of whatever package they give him. The combination of him and Lance Stroll is going to be an interesting one, because Lance has had a sketchy history, I think, you know, in the past couple of years with Seb. He's been super aggressive with his teammates, because I feel like he almost needs to overcompensate and prove that he deserves to be at the team. But, you know, how that's going to be up against Fernando Alonso, I think Seb took it very well and handled it very well, but up against Fernando Alonso, he is not going to take that at all. So yeah, that could get a little bit spiky, and I'm not sure once we get to that top end of the midfield if, you know, Aston Martin can give their drivers that car, if they really have, you know, the driver lineup to compete. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Lance Stroll, because as hopefully their car gets better and they do kind of end up at that top end of the midfield fighting with the likes of, you know, McLaren and Alpine, if they can also get, you know, have good cars this year, I'm not sure if Lance Stroll is going to be able to raise his game, so, you know, to kind of match the likes of Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon, and Lando Norris as well. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch. But certainly Fernando Alonso, you know, he talked about the fact that he believes that there is so much potential in this team, and if they can get everything together under his guidance, they know that they've got the driver. Fernando Alonso is still unbelievable, you know, performing unbelievably, one of the best drivers on the grid, even at 41 years old. So to have a driver of that caliber, they know that he's going to get the most out of whatever car they're going to give him, and that just fills the team with a lot of confidence. They have a world championship caliber driver at the team, so, you know, I think that's going to be a really kind of, you know, boost for them as well. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting season, I think, because especially from the Aston Martin point of view, they should be challenging the likes of McLaren. If anything, this battle for 2023 is almost a precursor for the future, because both of these teams in the likes of, you know, 2025 and the brand new rule changes in 2026, they're going to want to be kind of championship winning teams, and they're going to want to fight for titles by, you know, those kind of seasons in 2 or 3 years. So this is almost an early precursor of future championship battles, and I think both teams have a lot riding on this, especially McLaren, because I feel like Aston Martin are a lot earlier in their kind of development for, you know, trying to get to become a championship winning team, whilst McLaren really underperformed last season. And yeah, we'll see kind of if they'll be able to bounce back and start on the right foot from the very beginning of the season. Aston Martin the exact same. So yeah, this is a really interesting battle in terms of momentum, because especially in Lando Norris and Fernando Alonso, I think these are two drivers who almost stand out. If we ignore kind of the top 3 teams and the top 6 drivers in those teams, Lando Norris and Fernando Alonso, in my opinion, they stand above all of the other drivers on the grid outside of the top 3 teams. And these are two drivers who are looking for race-winning cars. They're looking for championship-level machinery, because I believe that both of these drivers, they can fight with the likes of Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, but they're almost stuck in the midfield. And whichever team comes out on top, you know, McLaren or Aston Martin, it's almost going to have that, you know, they're going to have that a massive boost of confidence that, yes, not only did they kind of beat everyone else in the midfield, but they are the team that is even more likely to challenge for championships in the next 2 or 3 years. So yeah, this Aston Martin and McLaren and potentially Alpine battle as well is going to be massive in 2023, because it's going to define who is on the right foot and kind of on that championship path, potentially a little bit ahead on schedule compared to the other teams. Anyway, there you have it. That is my reaction to both of the car launches. Let me know which one is your favorite in terms of both the livery and also who you think is going to be better in 2023, McLaren or Aston Martin. Anyway, there you have it. I hope you did enjoy this video, and if you did, then don't forget to drop a like and smash that subscribe button. That would be massively appreciated, and I'll see you in the next one.